Turkey, mashallah. We always begin with Syria and end up in Turkey. And sometimes, as you know, the Turks love Germany. They want to reach Germany. So the next stop is always Germany. But this time they're not smuggled into Germany. They come through regular, qualified paths. That's right.
So a brother asked from Istanbul. He says that the word Nuzul has created much confusion regarding the second advent of Jesus Christ alayhi salam. Why is that so? And how can it be settled among the Muslims?
The word?
Nuzul. Nuzul.
Nuzul.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem.
كان السؤال حول كلمة النزول في القرآن الكريم. يقول هذا الأخ سائل الكريم من اسطنبول تركيا، يقول أن هذه الكلمة قد أساء الكثير فهمها، وهكذا قد أحدثت ضجة كبيرة في الساحة الفكرية والعقائدية، ويطلب من حضرة المؤمنين أن يعطينا حلا كي يفصل هذا نقطة الخلاف هذه بين عامة المسلمين.
You see, the word Nuzul has been used in the Holy Quran in so many places. Yet it has not created any confusion in the mind of those scholars which present the excuse that because the word Nuzul is used in relation to Jesus Christ, so it is because of this word Nuzul that we are in a state of confusion and we are justified to believe that it would be He Himself who would descend from heaven bodily. This is their argument. As against, let's study such cases where the word Nuzul in the Holy Quran is used in the Holy Quran elsewhere, and then the matter will become very clear. The most important thing to be noted here, that the word Nuzul in relation to the books and the Quran, etc., teachings, is used extensively in the Quran. But nowhere it is taken to deliver a literal message. In fact, when the non-believers claimed that they would only believe if Muhammad Rasulullah ascends to the heaven, descends and brings a book descending from heaven, Muhammad Rasulullah is told by God, no way, no way. It's impossible. Because you are a prophet. And prophets do not ascend or descend with a book. And you are a bashar. And bashar does not ascend and descend with a book. So the question of a physical descent is completely ruled out. Yet, surprisingly, in so many verses of the Quran, repeatedly it is said that we sent down the teaching. Why does the word Nuzul not confuse the ulama about this? Number one. Moreover, apart from the teachings, it is when you come to the raising of prophets, there is only one prophet alone in the entire book, the Quran, who is mentioned as having descended. Not even Jesus is mentioned there as having descended. Out of so many prophets, just one single prophet, whose name is Muhammad Rasulullah, he is mentioned to have descended, and the rest are not mentioned to have descended. So they go after Hadith and get confused. Why do they not start their journey with the Quran and get confused in the very first place? Ya ulil albab allazina amanu. The address is also very important. Ya ulil albab, O people who have some wisdom, who possess wisdom. Those who also believe. قَدْ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكُمْ ذِكْرَ الرَّسُولَ. God has caused to caused the Nuzul of Muhammad Rasulullah who is Zikr al-Rasula, who is a memory of God personified, and also a Rasul. Yatlu alaykum ayatillahi mubayyinatin. So the person who is mentioned to have descended is the person who reads the ayat of the Quran to them, is a living person. Qad anzalallahu ilaykum is the same word Nuzul which is mentioned in the question. Now I inquired from the ulama who raised such questions as to show me one single verse which speaks of any other prophet of God having descended like Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu is mentioned. And yet they believe he did not descend physically. They believe that he was born out of a human mother. So when the Quran says, they do not take the literal meaning. They do not accept the word Nuzul in literal sense at all. When the Quran speaks of Muhammad Rasulullah, so they still say no. When the Hadith speaks of Jesus Christ, they say Ameen, Ameen, Alhamdulillah, Bismillah. Now we know what the meaning of Nuzul is. Isa must descend, because Rasulullah has said he would descend. But the Quran says, we have descended, Muhammad Rasulullah says, no. It's a trivial thing, forget about it. Is that justified? Is that attitude honest? Is this what they call the love of Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu? Let this be translated, then I'll come back to the same word again. Yes. And there are other verses of the Quran which use the same word Nuzul in different forms and inflections. For instance, now I would like the ulama to translate this really for me. Well, that would be a great addition to my knowledge. قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ لِبَاسًا يُوَارِي صَوَاتِكُمْ وَرِيشًا. Have they ever seen dresses being showered upon them during the rain or just by themselves? Have they ever picked up their dresses from outside? The crowds come and say, come on, let's wear it. I would have the best garb and the best turban and this and that. So what about this Nuzul? Qad anzalna is the same word. Ya Bani Adama. These dresses are not for the Muslims alone, for the whole Bani Adam. That means such rains should be witnessed by the people all around the world. Qad anzalna alaykum libasan yuwari sawatikum warisha. But they don't understand. They know this has been mentioned and they know that the dresses are not showered. Why don't they understand the message? Because وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. This is what they do not have. That's the main problem. Please. So, the dresses are being showered from the heavens. If anzalna means literal descent, bodily descent of the thing mentioned. But perhaps they are afraid of going out in search of dresses. Because, according to the Holy Quran, وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدَ فِيهِ بَأْسٌ شَدِيدٌ. It's not just the dresses which are made to descend from heaven, also, the hard metal, hadith, is also is made to descend from heaven. The steel, the iron, whatever name you give it, but al-hadid is the hardest, one of the hardest metals. And the Holy Quran says we also made it descend. So maybe the ulama are afraid that while they go out in search of libas, instead of libas, hadith begins to descend. So they are making a mockery of the Quranic verses by sticking literally to the meanings which cannot be taken literally at all by any sense. Any man who has this albab, who can be described as ulul albab. That positively proves that it is the albab which they are lacking, lub which they are lacking, and it is taqwa which they are lacking in. So only Jesus is seen by them to have descended from heaven, and all other things mentioned by the Quran are not taken seriously by them. Please. But still, the list of the possibilities is not yet over. The Holy Quran goes on building this scenario of these things descending from heaven by adding, وَأَنزَلَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْأَنْعَامِ ثَمَانِيَةَ أَزْوَاجٍ. And He made 8 couples. That is 4 couples, 1 each makes 8. 4 couples of an'am, that is the cattle, and the sheep, and also the camels, etc. So God says that He has also, beware mullahs, I have also caused the animals of 4 different types, very heavy some of them are, to descend from heaven. So again, the danger is if they run out in search of clothes and garments, maybe they are crushed by a camel or a very heavy cow or buffalo from the heaven falling upon them. How do they read the Quran? This is the question. Why didn't you try to understand the heavenly expressions with the wisdom which must be an integral part of all heavenly expressions? God is source of all wisdom. All that He declares has to be understood with wisdom. That is why ulul albab is mentioned earlier. So now the point is, why should God use the word nuzul in relation to Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in relation to the garments, in relation to the metal, iron, and in relation to the quadrupeds, al-anam. Right? If they had pondered deeper, they could have understood. And there would be no discrepancy between the usage of the Quran and the usage of hadith. Now, I take you back to the whole list again. But I'll reverse the order. First of all, let me remind you that hadith is mentioned as only one single metal of scores of metals. Minerals, there are so many, but none of them is mentioned to have descended from heaven except al-hadid, that is iron or steel. Right? Why? The obvious reason is that of all the metals, the iron was to play the most beneficent role in the development and evolution of human society. Gold is very precious, but you can turn gold out and still civilization will continue to grow at quite some pace. But take the iron out and you will fall back to the Stone Ages. Iron is the most beneficial, most useful metal of all the metals which have been created by God. It's just an integral part of human evolution. Right or wrong? So the word nuzul means the most useful. Descending means we have sent something which is exceptionally useful. In its class, there is no other thing more useful than this thing. Correct? God has created so many animals, but no animal is so essentially useful for man as the cattle, cows, and the sheep, and the camels, etc., they have played the most vital role in the survival of humans and their progress. All the agriculture owes its progress to these animals. Horses as well. They used to drive, even in Europe, even today. They are used as for driving the plows and cultivating the harvest. In many parts of the world, still horses are employed to do this job. But cattle is, in other forms also, is employed for this throughout the world, throughout the ages. Now, these tractors were invented only recently, but they were invented because of steel. See? So put together, they make the two wheels of human civilization to grow and flourish and advance. Remove them, and you fall back to the ages of this dark ages of the caves of stones. And no metal can compete with iron in its usefulness. Agreed or not?
Yes.
Now, come to libas. Libas is a symbol of human civilization. His culture and his social life, his dignity on earth is directly related to libas, and also his protection from extreme colds and extreme heat. It is exactly in the same sense that it is used in relation to the creation of Adam. You know, when he committed a sin against God, as if he was turned naked. And there the word libas acquires full meaning. Ab libasu taqwa. And also, he could not be called a civilized thing without libas. So the Holy Quran goes on building that he made Adam and gave him the civilization with the law that no one will walk naked on the earth, unprotected from heat or cold. Correct? So of all the signs of civilization, libas stands supreme in the history of humans. They carry sticks, they carry shoes, they do all things to make them appear dignified. But without libas, they're just naked hippies or less than that. Huh? Sometimes, I mean, not all hippies. So, out of the marks of civilization, libas stands out. Now turn to the prophets. Among all the prophets, which was the prophet who was the most useful, most beneficent? Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. Out of all questions, he stands out as the best of all prophets who benefited mankind like no other one did. Moreover, this one other important fact to be noted. Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah was the only universal prophet. And all these things which are mentioned by way of special graces of Allah are universal. Libas is universal, iron is universal, cattle is universal. So, how could a prophet be mentioned in that category which is of universal usefulness, unless he was universal in his message? So, Muhammad Rasulullah is the only prophet who is entitled to be mentioned under the word Nuzul. Because of all the prophets, he is the best. Of all the prophets, he is the only universal prophet. This is the meaning of Nuzul. So when Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam uses the term Nuzul with relation to the advent of Jesus Christ, this is exactly what the message is. He says the same old Jesus will not come, who was not universal. He would come under me to represent me. So he has to be universal, or he cannot be referred to under the word Nuzul. The Quranic usage of Nuzul makes it categorical that all things mentioned under this word have to be universal, not regional. Right or wrong? It's evident. So the second Jesus would be a universal prophet, and that means he has to be born in the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because the old Jesus is mentioned by the Quran, وَرَسُولًا إِلَىٰ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيل. How could he be understood to be universal? Bani Israel, addressed to Bani Israel, or raised for the sake of Bani Israel. So this Nuzul should have made them understand the meaning, instead of being confused about it. But again, the problem is, without wisdom and without taqwa, you cannot understand the Quran. Right? Jazakumullah. The time is over. So from Turkey we can't go to Germany this time. Tomorrow inshallah, or then whenever we meet again. Okay? And I again express my happiness that Amir Sahib Germany, Abdullah Sahib Wagushauser, is here with us today. Were you introduced?
No.
So this is the most important thing. Before we part, we must introduce him.
فاتني أن أعرف بحضراتكم وأقدم الأستاذ الكريم الضيف الذي نزل علينا ضيف في حلقة اليوم، وهو أمير الجماعة الإسلامية الأحمدية الفرعية بألمانيا.
Muhammad Abdullah Wagushauser. Correct?
Yeah, correct.
Yes, good.
كانت منافسة هذا.
Okay.
هكذا نأتي إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.